All right, I'm going to jump right in here. In April of this year, a study came out in the journal Science where researchers from Harvard and Stanford took one of the most credentialed forms of expertise on earth, the emergency room physician, and put a machine up against it. Now, it wasn't a quiz on paper, it was real patients, real charts pulled from a Boston hospital, the same messy, incomplete information that a doctor actually has at the moment that someone walks through the door bleeding or short of breath or scared and confused. It's at triage, the first minutes, the most dangerous ones, when you know the least. And the AI, this machine, landed on the right diagnosis about 67% of the time. The two attending physicians in this study, they were tested against it. They scored about 50 to 55%. Now, on structured treatment plans, the machine scored about 89% out of 100, more than double the doctors. And the model they used wasn't even the newest one. By the time the study was published, the people who built it said it was ancient history. Now, just let that sit for a second. Now, my name's Derek Rydall, founder of The Law of Emergence, author of the best-selling books Emergence, The Abundance Project, and a new book, A Whole New Human, the 10 evolutions we must make to survive and thrive in this AI age. And I've worked with coaches, teachers, authors, entrepreneurs, tech moguls, Oscar and Emmy winners, millionaires and billionaires. So this information is not just for successful people, although it's very important. It's for everybody. I've worked on this kind of information as a human evolution coach for over 20 years. And I want you to understand that this is not something that's going to go away. It's something that's only going to get worse and more intense. And the machine just beat the doctor at the door. And if it can beat the doctor with 12 years of training, $250,000 of education, maybe more, a wall of diplomas, then we have to ask ourselves something really honest. What makes us so sure it won't beat us? Now, if you're a plumber or an electrician or a construction worker or a handyman or handywoman, you still have time, although you're likely to have a lot more competition soon. But if you're a coach, a consultant, a therapist, a teacher, a strategist, a creative, or even an entry level or mid-level manager in a company, you need to pay very close attention to what's happening because your whole career, your livelihood, your future wealth and even well-being, it rests on one unstated agreement. I know something that you don't, and you'll pay me for it to have access to it. Okay? In the information age, that's the unstated agreement. I have some knowledge that you don't, and you'll pay me for it. Right? That's been what most of my career has been built on. And here's the bad news, although there will be good news here. That agreement has expired, or at least it is expiring very rapidly. Everything that you know, most of your expert knowledge, or if you're trying to build your knowledge to build a career, it's free now. Now, sure, the internet has given us access to the world's knowledge, and information for years already. But this isn't just pages of Google links anymore. This has been turned into an intelligent thinking machine that can talk to you, debate with you, teach you, create for you, and even go into the world and do things for you. And it doesn't sleep, it doesn't tire, it doesn't have an ego or a bad day or a hangover, right? And it'll explain the same thing to you or to any stranger 40 times at 3 a.m. without getting impatient or making the person feel stupid, right? I think of it like Siri, or not Siri, but when you're in like Google Maps or something and you're driving and you decide, this is me, maybe because I'm a man, I decide I'm going to go my own way and not follow the maps. And it's like recalculating. And then I decide to take a different turn. It's like recalculating. It never goes, Jesus, Derek, will you get on the right track already? It'll just keep responding and allowing me to do whatever I'm doing. So think about this: the tax preparer, the paralegal, the junior analyst building some deck at midnight, the tutor, the translator, the researcher, the copywriter, the radiologist reading the scan, the coder. Remember when they used to say, go to school to become a coder? Now, I'll talk about it. There are more coders being hired at certain levels, but even the author, the artist, the musician, the designer, one by one, AI is walking into the room that took these humans, a decade or more to earn their way into that opportunity. And it's doing the work for them in seconds for the cost of electricity. And for maybe some of you watching who want to be an artist, a designer, a consultant, a coach, a teacher, etc. And even those people that are going to school, perhaps you have children that are looking at, what should I go to school for? I have parents talking to me all the time now. They're like, my kid's asking me, should I even go to school? And if so, what for? When this AI is already doing so many things a human can do better, faster, cheaper. Now, to be clear, as I said, I'll mention some of these points. To be intellectually honest, the job reports now say that more jobs are being created, possibly even because of AI. And that's possible. And in some places, true. Some companies who aren't AI native yet, they still need more people if they want to stay competitive. And some companies who are using AI a lot are growing rapidly, and they need more people to manage the increased volume and even oversee the AI for now. And to get these jobs, most people are going to have to change their skills, upskill, and people don't change easily. Right? Through the last several industrial revolutions, all the experts say we've always created more jobs, but what they don't say is whole generations were lost before they finally adapted and adopted new skills to fit in to the new industrial complex. Right? But here's the thing that's not talked about. The stated goal of many of the biggest companies and the hyperscalers, this is the people that are building the AI, is to replace all human labor. That's where the money comes in, right? That's what they call the TAM, the total addressable market. Trillions and trillions of dollars of labor that has been being paid to humans who get sick and complain and get unions. And if we could replace all that, we're all going to be rich. And that's what is so much of these trillions of dollars that are being invested in AI is built on. It's built on the promise they'll be able to replace human labor. You understand? And in fact, it has to be the case, because if they don't start replacing significant amounts of human labor, they're not going to be profitable. And the entire economy as we know it, because it's been built increasingly on the back of AI, is going to crash in a way that we haven't seen in nearly 100 years. And they're also saying that, right? As the sci-fi writer William Gibson said, the future is already here. It is just not very evenly distributed. So in the long run, and maybe in the very near future, this is the key idea here: fewer and fewer people are going to need you anymore, or at least in the way that they used to. And again, this is not what most people and experts are saying. And I'll get to why that is. But we have to have our eyes wide open. We don't want to just hate on AI, because there's a lot of value to it. We don't want to be a Luddite, and we don't want to stick our head in the sand. And we cannot succeed and future-proof our life, work, wealth, and well-being if we just try to do things the same way. Now, I know this is not a very optimistic point of view right now. And you might think, I'm supposed to be an inspirational, motivational teacher. Why am I being so skeptical and cynical? Tell me something that makes me feel good, Derek. But I'm also a human evolution coach. In fact, probably primarily, and even a spiritual teacher. And real spiritual growth and real human evolution, it requires more than just merely comforting the afflicted. Yeah, Jesus comforted a lot of afflicted people, but he also afflicted a lot of comfortable people, right? Sometimes you have to have discomfort to change. In fact, as humans, if you're not having enough uncomfortable days, moments, conversations, you are not only not growing, you are stagnating. That's a whole nother conversation that I'll share with you at a later time. But the bottom line is that that's often the only way we really change and grow. And in this current climate right now, what most people, media, teachers, pundits, you name it, are trying to comfort people, assuage people, or even anesthetize people because they understand that if we don't have an opiate for the masses, if we don't make them, entertain them to death, feed them enough happy meals and all the stuff that's in our food that dulls our awareness and all of that. Don't get me started. If we don't do that, the people are going to suddenly wake up and look around and realize that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer and the gap is getting wider, and we have a trillionaire now and we're going to have more trillionaires, and wages have not grown on pace at all with inflation or with CEO pay, all these things. We even see it now with the rise of socialism, and the people are going to riot. We're going to have a French Revolution, and there will literally be heads on platters. And because that's what humans eventually do. If their life becomes has deep inequality and injustice in it. And so understand that most of the media and most of the media industrial complex and even most of the experts in AI are trying to calm us, make us feel better. And most of the advertising you see online as well. Okay. So they'll make you angry just enough to click and have the scroll of doom, but not so much that you actually change. It's not designed to make you change. It's designed to keep you asleep in the matrix while the algorithms continue to feed off your knowledge, feed off your limbic system, feed off your fears. I wasn't going to go here today, but we got to speak the truth. And so the idea that we keep hearing in many cases, some cases not, but that it's going to be fine. AI or industrial revolutions always create more jobs. As I said, that's not true in the short to medium term. The benefits rarely have accrued to the current working class or even middle class. They've accrued to the rich, to the oligarchs, et cetera, to the elites. And then eventually, the worker's child or grandchild, they got the benefits. But they're telling you this because it's in the parlance of technology. They're talking their book, or even in finance, which means they have an incentive to make you think it's all going to be okay. Right? They have an incentive to keep you happy, even numb, so that they can keep doing what they're doing and extracting more resources and building more of their own wealth and power, including political. Right? And I know you know this, but I'm just I need to be intellectually honest and speak to both sides of this argument because I get extremely frustrated these days when I see these smart people and the so-called experts running this same party line that AI isn't going to lose any jobs. Look, it's already creating new jobs, and these people that saying it's not, and again, it's a nuanced conversation, but again, understand the premise. If AI does not take jobs, AI will fail, and the trillions of dollars of investment will make a lot of people go bankrupt, including the economy. It's a contradiction that they cannot acknowledge, because if they do, there's gonna be blood in the streets. We're gonna be tipping over Waymos and burning down data centers. And in fact, some people have already tried, right? In fact, there was a recent tweet. I think it was a tweet or an X or whatever they call it nowadays. And it was from David Sachs, who's the AI czar for the White House. And he's again stating, and And if there's a podcast he does with several people called the All In Podcast, and he's often arguing with one of the leaders on the podcast, Jason Calacanis, who's an investor, who's showing all the data of job loss, and David Sachs, the AI czar, is arguing that it's all BS, and that in fact now more jobs are being created as a result of AI. And again, some more jobs will be created in the short term at certain levels and for certain needs. But a lot of jobs have already been lost. A lot of people are no longer hiring, and it's just the first inning. And again, keep in mind, for AI to succeed, it's not merely going to be making people more productive. It has to shrink the cost of labor so that it can shrink the margins so that business can be more profitable. Okay. And so, again, I'm not saying AI is a bad thing overall. There's a lot of good things it's going to do for us and already can do for us: medical and healing and agricultural and global warming and all kinds of positive things. But for you, the coach, the healer, the teacher, the author, the worker, the person who's thinking about how do I future proof my life, my work, my wealth, and my well being, or that of my family or my kids' future, you need to actually know what's really going on, and you need to be able to prepare for it. And if this is anxiety producing, believe me, I understand. Very transparently. Again, I've got the real lived and anecdotal evidence as I've watched myself and many of my partners in the world of self-help and teaching and books and programs and all that, as the businesses have, in some places cratered, as the engagement has in some places fallen off a cliff. It's not going well. And that's because people can just go to their AI and say, teach me, this, Derek teaches law of emergence, give me a workshop on that, or, teach me about that. And in most cases, it will. I'm going to get to why that's not good enough, but it's good enough, or so it seems, increasingly for a lot of people. Even AI therapists are growing, and people are saying they like them better than their real therapist. And so this is really happening, and it's showing up now in the actual numbers, in the loss of opportunity, in the fall off of engagement, and not to mention the AI slop is creating so much noise in the market that people are tuning out. I mean, you probably have noticed yourself going, oh, geez, more AI slop, and there's just so much going on. It's too much. It's hard to find a signal in the noise. So if you're feeling anxiety, that's not a bad thing. That's an evolutionary impulse, and it's telling you there's too much chaos and there's a need for some greater order that is trying to emerge. There is always a greater order emerging in the chaos. It's called chaotic. Put another way, that sort of low hum of dread you might be carrying around isn't just catastrophizing. Again, you're not broken. It's a signal in the noise that you actually need to prepare. It's evolutionary. You have to prepare for change. So I want to look at, this sort of idea, the end of experts, which is what we're facing. I want to look at the word expert for a minute, because the word is not what you think it is. It comes from the same root, experience. I'm sorry, the word expert comes from the same, this is live, comes from the same root as experience. Derek is learning how to talk again. It comes from, I've been using AI too much. So that's a whole nother conversation about the cognitive decline if you use AI too much. Maybe it's happening, but it comes from the same root as experience. Expert comes from the root of experience. I won't try to pronounce the Latin. It's something like expirere or expirere or something. And what it means is to try, to test, or to go through. So an expert in the original sense was someone who had been through something and come out the other side carrying what they'd learned, not just in their mind or in a book, but in their body. Okay? It wasn't just book knowledge, but lived wisdom. The wisdom encoded in the wound, the deeper purpose encoded in the pain. But somewhere in the last century, we lost that understanding. of what an expert really is. We took that word that meant one who has been through it. Who here has been through it? Post in the chat if you've been through it. And of course, if you've lived any length of time, you have. But they took what the real meaning was, one who'd been through it, and they redefined it to mean one who has the information. And we built whole professions on this, degrees, industries, on the idea that expertise is just a warehouse of facts, and whoever runs or owns the biggest warehouse wins. Now, I've been teaching people for decades how to build their life's work and all of that. And I talk about one of the biggest problems with the self-help and success industry and all that is most of it is like a car coming off a conveyor belt with shiny, look and interior, but no engine in it. And that's because most people are trying to look out at the world and go, what sells? What is he or she doing? Let me take a class and get a certification in his teaching and his experience, and then I'll go teach that. And there was a place for that, right? Like a teacher in a classroom who's reading a book and regurgitating what somebody else actually went through it to learn, because that person can't be in every classroom. There's some value to that. But increasingly now, we don't need that teacher doing just that, because the kids can just have an AI teacher teaching them everything in the world that has ever been experienced or learned, and then ultimately regurgitated. So we've lost over time, partly because of an industrialization and a need to scale knowledge, to build workers, et cetera, to fit as cogs in the machine. We had to find a way to put the knowledge in a book, the printing press, again, a huge revolution, also a huge catastrophe before it finally settled itself out. That was a valuable advance. Put something in a book, now we can print the book and we can scale that knowledge. It also meant we could scale deeper truth, like in the Bible and stuff. And then it also led to all kinds of crazy things. I think that's the witch hunts and all kinds of stuff. But that was an important evolution, and it still has its place. Scaling has its place. But we've lost over time the real meaning and purpose of being an expert. And in this new era, this brave new world, knowing what it really means and knowing how to re-embrace it and be it is the only way you're going to succeed. I'm telling you what I know. Okay? For 100 years, let's say, it's worked, having the warehouse of knowledge and information, and increasingly in books and then scaling on the internet, because information was scarce and access was the whole game. Again, there was a time where the world didn't have access to like the great works or the Bible. And in fact, the church liked it that way. You got to come to the church. You got to pay your dues, literally pay your tithes to get access. And even you don't get access, you got to take it from the expert priest up there. So that was a power play. And the democratization of information was really important. But so scarcity is where value is. And this is still true. There's still certain individuals and certain kinds of information that is scarce. Data sets that are owned just by, around a specific topic that is not a universal topic. It's very specific. All the satellites collecting all the data about, the stars, perhaps. There's certain data sets that are still unique that AI hasn't gotten its hands on yet. And now those are being sold for a large amount of money. But most information isn't scarce anymore. And dare I tell you, if nobody has mentioned it, all the things that you've learned, it ain't so special. Okay. I mean, you might put a unique brand on it. I've coined a lot of unique terms and phrases, but the universal teachings and principles that I teach and that everybody teaches aren't special. And the AI knows it all, right? The warehouse is free now. Everybody has the keys. So the expert as a warehouse or the expert who's just copied somebody else's expertise, that person is pretty much cooked. Now, again, there'll always be, spaces and places and moments. And again, I'm not saying information is invaluable, it's just ubiquitous. So if your value is that you know things, you have some knowledge about some things, or you've learned, the 7 steps to make this money, or the 7 steps to, get in good shape, or the 7 steps to fill in the blank, relationships, wealth, health, building a business, writing a book, blah, blah, blah. That's cooked. And just a slight little creative twist on it isn't going to be enough. Not enough for somebody to pay you for it and to even catch the signal in the noise, right? No amount of branding is going to save it. In the business world, they call this having a moat, right? What's the moat? Like in a castle that stops people from getting over and into the castle and taking you over? The moat isn't going to be knowledge. The moat is increasingly evaporating. Okay. But there was another meaning buried in that word also, this word expert or experier. And it's the one that the machine can't touch. Okay. So you've gone through it. That's an important thing. An expert is one who's been through it. But also the machine has read every book, and it's written, every book that's ever been written on, grief. It can quote Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the 6 stages, walk you through those stages and even do it in 50 languages and turn it into a poem that reads like a Shakespearean sonnet. Pretty cool. But the AI has never actually lost anybody. It doesn't know what grief is. I lost a child. For real. You reading that book ain't going to tell you what it's like, but I sure can. More than tell you, I can transmit it. And I know what it really takes to get through it. Right? Now, AI has absorbed every word ever written about heartbreak and addiction, about the slow death of a marriage, about the night that, you sat on the bathroom floor and weren't entirely sure you wanted to be there in the morning, like in the opening of Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert's book. But, and it can, again, describe that with all the fluency of a great writer, and it might even take your breath away poetically. But AI has never been on that bathroom floor. That's the new game. And it's not even new. It's literally what humans were built for. And it's what humans most deeply respond to. The machine has infinite information and zero life experience in the original meaning of the word. It hasn't lived a life. And as a result, it doesn't really know what it is to be human or what it's like. To know your mortality, to struggle to survive, to hold a sick child or loved one and be willing to die for them, to yearn for something better, to dig deep when you got nothing left and discover what you're really capable of. It doesn't know that. It can give you the 7 steps. Step 1, dig deeper. Step 2, you can do it. It's like it can give you all the steps, right? It knows all the notes to the song. But is that all there is to singing and music? It doesn't know how to help a human be more human. It can't. You cannot be truly initiated, healed, or given real wisdom by a database. Are you with me? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Post in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. I want to just hold on 1 second. I just want to see who we got in here. Hey, good to see you, Scott. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you, Lee. Various people. So you can be informed by an AI. Again, it's awesome. I use it every day. Tutored, corrected, coached, quizzed, and even improved in some ways. If you use it that way, again, most people aren't. They're outsourcing themselves to AI and they are literally losing their mind. This is documented, right? So you can get a lot of important information. And if you remain human and have agency and you take it to make yourself better, you can grow. But you can't be walked across a threshold by something that has never crossed it. The person who pulls you through the dark doesn't do it with information merely. They do it with presence, a steady nervous system that is sitting next to your terrified one. A face that's seen what you're seeing, but didn't look away, right? That plain, unfakeable, authentic fact of having survived the thing you're afraid you can't. One of the worst kinds of experts, it's not the only worst, but it always drove me crazy, was these financial experts whose entire financial abundance was built on teaching others about finance. But they themselves were broke otherwise. They didn't actually go through the hard and scary decisions that you could lose your actual money and invest in it. You ever had an investment broker tell you you should invest in that only to find out they're not invested in it? They're just selling a product. And so it's the same thing all the way down the line. Again, all the ideas, the strategies, the frameworks that we could ever need, they've been online and in books long before AI came along. But people are still struggling just as much, maybe even worse. Why? This is a clue. This is a really important clue to real success. I've studied the greatest, most successful people in history in many domains, and it was not that they read it in a book or got it online. That's never been the key to real sustainable growth, healing, progress, or success. But the real key has been hiding in plain sight all along. All the information in the world has not and will not ever get us where we want to go. I'm not saying it doesn't have value, but it's only a small, and I mean small piece of it. Most people, even with the best, most cutting edge ideas, simply won't and don't do the hard work that it really takes to change. Can I get some honest amens there? Like and the smart creators and teachers and entrepreneurs know this also. And that's why they are increasingly giving all their best stuff away for free. Why? Because and the new entrepreneurial creators like, oh my God, I can't tell them about this. Then they won't need me. No, they'll want you more. They'll be like, wow, they're giving away all this great stuff. This is amazing. It's already helping me. Gosh, what else will be possible if I actually, go in a little deeper with them? So that's a little sidebar clue. Give your best stuff away. I pretty much said everything I could ever say, and it's all there in the videos. By the way, if you like this video, smash that like button or whatever they say, subscribe, tell a friend, go watch the other videos, help me help the algorithm find this, because we do want to get found. But you give away the best stuff for free. Why? Because again, people aren't going to change just from information. You have to dig the well to drink the water that really refreshes. And the real experts, the real successful entrepreneurs and all that, they know, or teachers or coaches or whatever, they know that what a human really needs to get results. Who can guess? Post in the chat. What does a human really need to get results first, in most cases? Another human, right? They need another human. How good would a baby do if they were born and they had an AI and a library of books telling them how to grow up? How good's that baby going to do, you think? They need somebody to look into their eyes. We all do. To hold our hand sometimes, to hold us accountable. People need people. Isn't that a song by Barbra Streisand? People need people to become better people. We're social creatures. It's always been true. But now understanding that and aligning your life and work with it is a matter of survival. And it's the path to thriving in this age of disruption. The machine can inform anyone of anything, but it cannot transform them. And transformation is the only way your life and work actually gets better. Real transformation. Information is inert. Transformation is alive. It means transformation, to go above and beyond the form, which your ego will not let you do. It views that as danger, and it will trick you into staying in the old form and believing you're changing. Information alone rarely will get you to bust out of the matrix of your own mind. It requires living things, a lived experience that AI can't give you. We change in the presence of someone who has already changed. The greatest and the only real gift you can give anybody is your embodied presence. But you got to unwrap it first. And then it's the gift that keeps on giving. You give them your presence. Now, it can be embodied in words and workshops and whatever, but if it's not embodied, if there's no presence there, again, it's the car without the engine. It's the gift box with nothing in it. But if it's got presence, it begins to unwrap and awaken their presence. Like a candle, one lighting the next, the next, the next. One little flame can light up the whole world with presence. We change in the presence of somebody who already has that new presence, who has changed. We get braver around people who are braver than us. Now, here's the clue. If there's anything you're really resonating with what I'm saying right now, if it's touching you in some way, activating you, it's not the words. Yeah, the words are nice, and I have some good words. But you've heard these words before, many of them. And yeah, there's a value and a talent to wordsmithing and how you organize and what you say first, second, and third that will make a difference, no doubt. But what you're really picking up is presence, is the truth that has been embodied. Okay? It is the consciousness of wholeness that heals. It's the consciousness that makes the difference. A frightened body will naturally settle, like next to a calm one. When the baby is born, the best thing is you put the baby on the mother's chest and it starts to synchronize with her heartbeat, with a frequency. Coherence happens, right? A child has difficulty soothing themselves. But if they are soothed, if they are held, sometimes 1,000 times, they embody that presence. There was a study done, or back in an orphanage. I forget the year; it was a long time ago. But these kids were dying and getting very sick and not thriving. And a doctor came in and began to, observe and all that, and eventually just had a intuition. Noticed the nurses, it was very efficient and utilitarian, and he was like, hold the babies while you're feeding them. I don't know, crazy idea. And as they just began to hold the baby, look in the baby's eye, really connect with that child, the deaths fell off a cliff. The children began to laugh and even cry, which was a sign of life, and start to come alive and start to heal and begin to thrive. Now, if there was an AI walking around going, it is feeding time. I know AIs don't talk like that. Those kids would have still died. It was the embodied presence of those nurses. They've even done this with rabbits and shown that without the touch and the embodied presence of another human feeding them, one group of rabbits failed to thrive while the others did. That's not a data transfer. That's not a large language model. That's a human transmission. And as the machines get better, this is going to become more valuable. your embodied presence, your unique authenticity, what I call your life code embodied through lived wisdom, that becomes the scarce resource. That becomes the new Gucci or Prada or whatever the latest brand is. The more synthetic the world gets, synthetic voices and faces and friends, synthetic advice right on tap, the more that a real human being who has actually lived something becomes the rarest thing on the menu. And to be practical, the thing you can charge for and charge more for. What I call handcrafted humanity. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use AI, that doesn't mean you can't scale, but what you'll be scaling is humanity. It's not just information. You'll be scaling love and wisdom and presence. You get it? Because everything else is going to be noise. We're about to and already being flooded with infinite information and even very competent answers. And in that flood, the one thing that will float to the top and that will become priceless is contact with another human who is undeniably, unrepeatably, authentically real. Do you agree? This is the secret to winning in the brave new world. This is job security. Use AI, learn AI, become an expert at it, but invest in the real superintelligence, the real technology that makes it all matter, and that is your human technology. You are the killer app the world is waiting for. A world where we have AI doing everything and we don't have to work anymore and we can just snap our fingers and a Ferrari manifests, whatever. That is not a utopia, people. That is a dystopia. We've seen it. We saw Rome rot from the inside because it had too much abundance and no more meaning or purpose left. It didn't fall from being conquered. It fell from this loss of humanity. So moving forward, if you want to be a coach, a teacher, an author, a creator, et cetera, you will increasingly only get paid and more existentially only be needed for who you've become and what you can transmit by being an authentic human. The machine has pulled the floor out from under the lazy expert, the copy and paste, the follow someone else's blueprint. I will never just give you my blueprint. All of my blueprints are designed to help you discover yours. And the people that are just coasting on credentials, thinking just because they got a certification somewhere, or they're reselling the same information they downloaded 20 years ago or from the internet or ChatGPT gave to them, but they didn't live a single day deeper than that brochure, they're done. They're cooked, which is a huge competitive advantage for you that are listening to this. And honestly, they should be done, right? I won't go into this all right now. In future things, I will, but AI is creating the most existential crisis we'll face. On one hand, taking away jobs, taking away meaning. And you see like this already happening across college campuses with this last graduation. Any mention of AI, the students booed it, they hate it. And so there's a big crisis, a global identity crisis coming. But the gift under it, as I talk about in this show and previous episodes, to how to read the headlines and behind the headlines and behind the scene, SEEN, is to understand it's creating this breakdown of the world, an Armageddon, if you will, a destruction of the world as we know it, not of the actual world, the concepts of the world, because most of what we've been doing and identifying with and as and believing we had to survive was never what humans were made to be and do. And so while it's pulling the rug out from under our old identities and maps of reality, it's doing that from a larger cosmic evolutionary purpose so that we can finally wake up. What's a human really for? What am I really for? What am I really made of and made for? Don't you want to know the answer to that? Not how can I make money only? Nothing wrong with money. Not how can I get them to buy my stuff? You want them to buy your stuff. But Jesus was a great salesman. So Mother Teresa too, and Dr. King and Gandhi. And so there's nothing wrong with selling and promoting and people buying stuff. Don't get me wrong. But is that what you're for? Is that why you said yes and showed up here? Not today only, but to this world? No. You're an answer to a prayer. You're a real solution to a problem. Your life matters more than just matter itself. And so we're being invited into a human evolution. This is kind of the idea of my book, A Whole New Human, in bookstores now, where fine books are sold. Get a copy, buy a copy for a loved one, especially if they're struggling or afraid or don't know what they want to do with their life, or their students or their teachers. Please get a copy. And if you go to my website, DerekRydall.com, you go to the book page and put in your information, you'll get some AIs I built called Human Evolution Coach AI and Focus Coach that will help you get the right answers to become more you, not to give your power and agency away to AI. And it will help you, students, your children, etc., to map out what's the right plan for you. And that's free. It's decades of my own work embodied in that, and it's free. So the ones who are going to become irreplaceable, they don't just, again, copy other people's blueprints, regurgitate what they've been saying for years. They're the ones that go the other direction. They go down. They go down into their own experience. They don't just want to become ascended masters and float off the planet. They become descended masters. They go down into their own experience, into the real cost of the thing they teach or want to teach. That's where the gold is. This is what I teach in the life code work. Speaking of which, I think there's a link in here, but I have an event tomorrow for free called The Story That's Keeping You Stuck. Let me see if I can pull that up and put it in here. See if this comes in here. Yeah. If you haven't registered, register for it. It's free. I just put a link there. Click on that before it goes away when this call ends. And you'll see, we'll go deep into that tomorrow. But basically, the people of the future, the winners, the succeeders, the thought leaders, the real leaders or change makers, they're like modern day shamans. They go down into the real cost of what it is they teach or want to teach. And again, as I teach in the life code, that's where the gold and the gift and the treasure is buried. They go down into becoming, as Gandhi is quoted to have said, but maybe didn't, be the change you want to see, right? They become the kind of person whose presence does something that a transcript can't, okay, or an AI. The Oracle of Delphi, as I talk about a lot, she was a woman, by the way, and what she said, these two famous words, were not an affirmation, they were a warning carved over the door, and they've never been more practical than today, and that is know thyself. Because what you do not govern or know in yourself will be governed for you by someone else or something else. What you haven't made conscious will be automated, optimized, and then sold back to you, right, by something that before long will know you better than yourself. So the only protection, I really mean this, the only protection is to actually become someone and remember and reconnect and ultimately integrate and embody who and what you really are, right? So that you can, because that's going to naturally show up in your frequency. It's going to become like a homing beacon to your ideal clients and tribe partners and even lovers. And it's going to be the thing that has the most value. So what do we do next? And we're almost done here. And I want to open it for some questions if there are. And I want your questions, your feedback, because this is a live show. and I want to bring what you need and want most. And so tell me the topics you want to talk about, the news stories, the headlines, post in the chat, let me know. So this can be, I want to know what you need so that this is valuable enough that you'll show up. And by the way, for those that have been on the previous episodes, I know this is a day earlier and I missed last week. I had a medical emergency. I won't go into all the details, but I guess I'm up for a new vision because my retina started detaching in my right eye. I don't want to gross you out, but you can see some of the red there. And I've been in and out of procedures to try to reattach. In the Bible, it says, if thine right eye offends you, pluck it out. Maybe I took it a little too seriously, but it's all about really seeing more deeply, seeing beyond the appearances. And that's been a process I've been in, ironically, and a deeper commitment to that. And that's what this show is all about. And then my eye's like, well, I guess it's time for us to have an upgrade. So I'm in the process of getting upgraded there in my eye. So that's why I missed last week. And then we have this training tomorrow, and also next week I'm doing something. So this is going to be on Wednesday for the next couple of weeks or so, just for those that have been here. So step one, stop competing with the machine on its own turf. The moment your work is mostly information, where you're just delivering it, organizing it, retrieving it, etc., you're in a race that you're going to lose. Can we all hear that and agree with that? Hand that part over. Use AI ruthlessly for everything that is knowable, so that your eyes and ears and hands and mouth and heart are free for everything that isn't, or only that which is knowable before and behind the headline, behind the experience, that deep embodied presence. Number two, move in your life to where the AI can't follow. I've already said this: presence, embodiment, the lived and scarred particular experience of having been through the thing. Remember, expert comes from experiere or whatever, which means to have been through it. Relationships that deepen over years, right? The capacity to sit with somebody inside a moment that has no clean answer and not flinch from it. The story, the song, the work of art that comes out of your real pain and your unique observation. That's also, by the way, where real taste comes from, right? One of the very famous producer, I'm drawing a blank on his name, Rick Rubin. He's not like a musician, and he never was. He just loved music, and he developed his own taste based on his lived experience and passion and honoring his signal, and became one of the most famous, most impactful music producers in history, having never been a musician or a guy who could work the boards and all that stuff. What people paid him for and what he's made $500 million from is just his taste, just his point of view, just his developed, refined perception. Many of the greatest chefs are great because of their developed palate, literal taste. Think about that. And when that gets embedded and embodied in your words, your work, your workshop, the song, the story, that's what people resonate with. And that can be the ground you claim. And it will be yours because there's no other you but you. You get it? There's no model that can be that. At least not for a long time, because to get there, one of these AIs as a robot, a humanoid, would have to be born, have to lose, have to break, have to survive, have to have a sense of mortality. There's a lot that goes into you being who you are and what makes you valuable. So much more than information. That's where we're heading, and that's a good thing. But it will be a very painful thing if you don't get on the train of that now. Number three, go and get, on the topic of experience, go and get the experience you've been avoiding. This is the uncomfortable one for many people, right? You can't transmit what you haven't lived. Boy, now I'm really seeing my eye. It must look a little weird to some of you guys. It doesn't hurt, just in case. You're like, oh my God, that looks so painful. Um, you can't transmit what you haven't lived. If you want to be the irreplaceable kind of expert in any area, you have to actually go through more things. Now, for many of you, you've been through a lot. So you have to do the uncomfortable thing of going into that cave and bringing that is implicit and making it explicit, the shadow work and all that stuff that I do in the more deeper programs. I'll talk more about that and take you through some of that tomorrow. Go ahead and check that link, click that link, and come join us. So you have to go through things, and you have to, again, as I said, deal with the fear you've been managing around, the grief you've been trying to outrun, the inner work you keep meaning to start, the difficult conversations you know you need to have and have needed to have. Your future value, not to mention a life of deeper meaning, is on the other side of those experiences. And in many cases, the very experiences people use their expertise to avoid. Expertise, what you think you know, is one of the greatest traps to really knowing and to doing the deeper work. I like to say kids are young, happy, and healthy, and adults are old, sick, and miserable because kids have only questions and adults have only answers. And the question is the quest you're on. Go on a quest. Be willing to ask the hard questions that matter about yourself, about your life, about what you want, etc. The machine is going to know everything. It already does. Let it. That war is over and we lost. Okay. But again, I think it's going to turn out to be the best thing, losing that war, because it forces this question that I already mentioned that we've been dodging, for at least a century, but probably a lot longer. But, since the Enlightenment and all of that, and even beyond that, or before a century, if a machine can do everything a human used to find value and identity in, at least in the marketplace, what's a human for? What am I really for? And now those questions are not like, oh, what's a human for? I guess I have no, now it's a powerful, empowering question. What is I found a question, a quest to go on that as I get the answer, I'll become more me and I'll become truly a signal in the noise. I'm answering the question, what's a human really for? And what am I really for? The answer to that is the only career you have left. And even if you could keep skidding along or skating along, clocking in, it's the only life worth living. Was it Socrates that said the unexamined life is not worth living? So again, the machine's going to have all the information, but you will always hold the keys to the deepest transformation for yourself and for others. People aren't going to need you as much for the knowledge you have. They're going to need you for who you've become. You get it? So here's the most important. Go become someone and keep becoming. Capiche? All right. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. I want to see what you've got in the chat, and I'm going to go in there and listen. I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to your chats. I'm going to look at your chat. Julia, robots don't have a soul. Yes, I would agree, but they will be able to act like they do. And it'll be very hard for humans to tell the difference eventually. But right now we still have time. Let me just see. Eduardo, are you still here, brother? I see you have posted. So good to see you, brother. It's been a minute. I don't know who the next person is. You can't believe you caught me live. I'm glad you did. And I already said hi to you, Scott. Brandon Hoffman. Hope you're doing great, man. Lee, good to see you, Lee. Thank you for talking about the whole new human. Again, please post in here what's your biggest nugget or takeaway here? What's your biggest question? And don't be nice. If you don't agree with me, tell me, but tell me why. Don't just troll. Don't just say you're full of shit. Hope I don't lose my YouTube for saying that, but just like be honest, push back or ask into, and also share what you really would love to see and hear that would make you ask this question that would make you make this must see TV, like make you want to show up and also make you want to let people know. Because I want to make sure I'm not just speaking into a void or, you know, some out of touch guy, get off my lawn. I want to make sure this is landing and helping and serving and helping you really make progress. So share what's going on, what this brings up. What are the stories in the world you most want to be able to see behind the scene that you want to be able to interpret in a way, which is the big idea of this show, interpret in a way that is inspiring, empowering, and gives you more agency, not less. And again, click on that. Thanks, Eduardo. Love you too, brother. So just take a moment and post in the chat any answer to any of those questions. If there's no more questions, we'll wrap it up. Or pushbacks, clarifications, or what it's bringing up in you and you don't know how to deal with it. You're angry, you're upset, you're scared, you don't know what to do. Just so I can see where you're at. And I'll give you just another few seconds to do that. Otherwise, we will call it a day. All right. I don't see any more questions, comments. Again, anything that you would love to see more of, specific stories or topics you'd love me to explore so that this really becomes valuable to you. Yes. Well summed up, Eduardo. All right, everybody. Please click on that link so you can join me tomorrow live, and then you'll actually get live person-to-person coaching from me as well. The link, I just put it in the chat. And it's just really an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. I love and appreciate you. I did not market this to my list. I won't always be letting you know. So if you're on my list, or even if you're not, subscribe so you get the notifications, you know what's coming, and you don't miss it. And comment in the actual chat and comment when it goes live on YouTube, or not live, but it becomes a video. Check out the other videos, share it with a friend. If you believe these ideas are important, even before you have developed your own, or you're in the midst of developing it or whatever, the one place you have agency and influence to make a difference in the world is to support or promote individuals whose ideas resonate and you believe can make a difference. So helping this get to more people is you being on purpose if you resonate with this. So please help me do that. Like, subscribe, share, comment. And until next time, remember to live authentically. It's so important. Even more important, love yourself and others unconditionally and follow your destiny. Take care, everybody.